大家好，这里是微语看世间，我是陈微语。6月5号呢，由包括卢比奥在内的4名美国国会共和党议员和4名民主党议员发起了一个跨国议会对华政策联盟，简称 IPAC。联盟呢，在网站上发表声明说，成立这个组织的目的是为了在民主国家之间针对中共目前的行为和未来的野心所构成的挑战，做出协调一致的反应。联盟将关注包括维护基于国际原则的秩序、人权、促进公平贸易、加强制定针对中共的安全战略、保障国家诚信等5大范围。当时呢，有美国、英国、日本、德国、澳大利亚，还有加拿大和瑞典以及挪威8个民主国家加入了，被人们戏称为是新8国联军。1周之内呢，这个联盟就扩大到了包括捷克、意大利、立陶宛和荷兰在内的12个国家，超过了100多名政治家加入。加内特、詹纽斯和欧文·考特勒代表加拿大加入了这个联盟，成为了联席主席。詹纽斯呢，是加拿大亚省的一位年轻的保守党国会议员，下议院加中关系特别委员会成员。他还是4个孩子的爸爸。从2015年当选国会议员以来呢，他被人们称为是最直言不讳的议员。詹纽斯的祖母是纳粹大屠杀的幸存者，受他祖母的影响，所以他一直呢为人权和宗教自由而发声。而我们呢有一个机会采访到了詹纽斯。
I believe the APEC alliance comes at a time when the Chinese Communist Party becomes a major global challenge. And I noticed the APEC mission is to increase collaboration between like-minded legislators to craft a strategic approach on issues related to China. So I would like to ask you to specify what kind of collaboration and the strategic approach you guys are planning on.
Well, it's relatively early days, and we're looking forward to continuing to develop some of the specifics of that approach. But the broad point is that we need a multilateral response among free and democratic nations to the agenda of the Chinese government. Right now, we have a situation where countries generally are left to act alone, and that leaves them more vulnerable to different kinds of pressure. And we see how the government of China tries to isolate countries, tries to maybe for a while focus on warming up to one while putting more pressure on another, and then it switches. And what we need to have is a situation where, especially when there are threats which affect one country at a time, but in general affect all countries, that there is a collective discussion and collective response. Now, IPAC isn't a collaboration between governments as such. It's a collaboration among legislators, but it's an opportunity for us to have dialogue about the kinds of collective responses we should be having, and then putting pressure on our government. Here in Canada, we have the situation, for instance, of Canadians detained in China, unjustifiable effective hostage taking of Canadian citizens in China. And that's an example where a collective response, countries speaking and acting together, would have more of an impact than Canada trying to express its frustration and its displeasure alone.
Yeah, so when you're talking about the joint efforts, like the collective efforts, so what do those governments involved? What's their attitude?
Well, one of the nice things about the way the alliance is set up is that it's multi-partisan. So here in Canada, certainly there are cases where I, as a Conservative MP, disagree with what the Liberal government is doing on China. But in the context of IPAC, we have co-chairs from both the Liberal and the Conservative side. So I think governments should be willing to see this as a positive, in that there is a collaboration across party lines. At the same time, it's a collaboration that can advise governments and push them a little bit. Just because we're multi-partisan doesn't mean we're going to be agreeing with what the government does all the time. So there is that mechanism of pressure as well. But look, I hope that it is helpful to the government, that it is helpful to the advancement of our national interests to have this bipartisan, multinational network of legislators that are working to bring good policy approaches on these issues.
Okay, so when we're talking about those closing down the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party's the front companies such as Huawei, what happened to Meng Wanzhou, right? Like not very long ago. So do you think, Europe, especially Germany, will join the alliance against China as well? Because I think that's in Europe, that's what the Chinese government and especially Huawei has already, made great efforts and have already placed a very solid foundation there.
Well, we have German legislators as well as British legislators as well as EU legislators that are part of this network. So we have large buy-in from countries in Europe as well as North America, East Asia, and elsewhere. So that cooperation needs to continue. When it comes to some of these companies, I think it's very important for us to recognize the risks that are involved with some of these companies which are subject to a high degree of Chinese government control and really work to advance the interests of the Chinese state. So we need a thoughtful and hard-headed approach to that. And I'd like to see Canada recognize those realities as well. So far, we haven't seen any kind of clarity in terms of the position of the government of Canada around Huawei, but we hope that they will come to the right decision very soon.
Okay, so other than to raise those awareness to form this global trend of the, the united closer economic tie together, is there any other practical actions for APAC to take right now?
Well, there are a lot of different practical actions that we can take in different theaters and in different places. So one way might be to identify legislative responses to Chinese government interference in our countries and to share information about what those legislative frameworks would look like. It could be a real challenge for free societies to figure out how to, in a way, preserve the integrity of their societies in the face of kind of unconventional threats. When you have state-owned Chinese companies that are involved in influence and strategic operations, and you want to preserve a free environment and yet recognize that some people are trying to manipulate that free environment, it requires a lot of precision and subtlety in the legislative frameworks that you adopt. So I think we can work together, we can learn from each other, we can identify where other countries have tried to do this and how we can learn from their failures and learn from their successes. So that kind of legislative cooperation, identifying best practices and learning from them, goes a long way. Of course, speaking out together, speaking out for each other. There was, and this was immediately before the launch of Ipac, but many of the same legislators were involved in signing a joint letter on the situation in Hong Kong. So that was an example of where through the interpersonal networks that exist internationally now and that we're building, it becomes possible to get a lot of people jumping on a joint letter right away and send a very strong and clear message.
Yeah, so when talking about the Hong Kong national security law, so this is about the human rights issue you guys raised. Have you, made any plan to raise about the human rights issue, for instance, involving the organ harvesting issues for Falun Gong practitioners as well?
Yes, we're going to continue to do that, absolutely. And that's a case where, I think that the biggest thing that countries can do on their own is pass laws making it illegal to receive an organ in a country where there hasn't been consent. So extending the extraterritorial application of laws against organ harvesting. And I have been working hard to try and get a law like that passed in Canada as well. I've been sharing with my colleagues in other countries about what we're trying to do here in hopes that they will adopt similar laws. This is an idea that didn't originate in Canada. Taiwan has a law like this. Israel has a law like this. There's some other countries that do. And again, this is a potential area where IPAC legislators can work together to try and get similar laws passed in their countries. And I'm already learning things from other legislators about other kinds of laws that are happening in their countries around human rights. For instance, there's a lot of discussion about the slave labor of Uyghurs and what kinds of laws can we pass to address the sourcing of goods that involve slave labor, and trying to say that we're not going to do business with companies that are using slave labor. So that's the organ harvesting, the slave labor. There's many examples where we can put forward laws to move this issue forward.
Yeah, that's really great for you to take this great step forward. And so I just remember, like recently, the Czech Republic, they also joined the APAC, right? So the president of the Czech Senate announced that he will visit Taiwan. And in response to that, the Communist China claims to retaliate against the ZEX companies in mainland China. So what are the APAC going to do about that to support the Czech, like their people?
Well, this is again the way the Communist Party often operates, where they try and identify and isolate countries and punish them. And I think we need to stand together and express our support for the right of the Czech government to pass laws that are reflective of their values and in their national interest. And we need to stand together. And it doesn't mean that retaliation won't happen, but if we're supporting each other, and it makes it harder for that isolation to happen, it makes it harder for that retaliation to lead to a policy change.
Mm-hmm. So currently APAC has about 18 politicians, right? So you're expecting more people to join you?
Yeah, so far that's been the co-chairs. We have been inviting members to join as members. So there's the co-chairs, the leadership structure, and then there's the members. So our hope is to have a very large membership of individual legislators who are working in a structure where they will report to the co-chairs, and the co-chairs will then meet internationally on a regular basis to share information. And so there's different ways for legislators to be involved, and we think it will be a very wide web of people.
Okay, that's great. So you must be very optimistic about the APAC and what it can do for, to safeguarding the wisdom.
Yes, I think IPAC will be a very important vehicle for collaboration, for advancing these issues. Of course, the critical piece is getting the executive, the government of our various countries, to be on board and to be actively involved in that same kind of principled cooperation as well. So we will, as IPAC, be able to take some important steps along that road, and hopefully we'll be able to get laws passed and bring governments with us, and that is where the rubber will really hit the road.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So we really appreciate what you have done, and good luck with your cause.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
好，刚刚我们跟大家分享的呢是加拿大国会议员 Genuis 对于这个跨国联盟相关问题的解答。喜欢我们的节目，别忘了订阅、点赞和转发。下次节目再会。